Hi, this is Steve Link. I am the Director of Philanthropic Services for Cornerstone, and it's a pleasure to be with you today on behalf of the Wayne County Community Foundation to talk about the role of communications in your long-term planning. I would like to start, as always, with a disclaimer that I am not a estate planning attorney, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I'm coming to you with 30 plus years of experience working with donors in nonprofits for higher education to share some of the lessons learned and hopefully allow you to maximize the impact of what your long-term plans are. Today, I'd like to look at the importance of transparency in communicating with your advisors. My dad passed away 2 years ago, and one of our discoveries in serving as his executor was that it's pretty clear that he did not give all of the information to each of his primary professional advisors. And I think they probably would have given him some different counsel had they known the totality of his estate and the makeup, the composition of those assets. So I encourage you when you sit down with your advisors to be candid with them, because it's no different than going to a surgeon. You want the surgeon to be making a decision based on full information. So if you only tell them half the symptoms you have, they may come to a different conclusion about what your problem is and what's needed. Likewise, you want a surgeon with sufficient experience who's done whatever the procedure is that you're having done hundreds of times with good outcomes. As you age, it becomes important to offset the experience with the age of the professional who's assisting you. So coming into my 60s now, I'm very cognizant that I will begin to need to look for younger advisors because I want somebody who is going to be around when I eventually pass away. And having somebody who is my age or older will potentially become a problem because they might predecease me at a time when I'm no longer able to go out and identify a new professional advisor. So thoughts to keep in mind. The second group I'd like to talk about transparency in communications are errors. Errors, both individuals and organizations benefit from having a better idea of what your plans are, not necessarily what the dollar amount is that you're thinking about leaving, but what your goals are for what will happen with the resources that you do leave. It's hard sometimes to predict what you will have remaining at your passing, and you don't want to take away people's motivation to work hard or to work within the means that they have. On the other hand, telling people in advance and partnering with them can be helpful to understand whether the goals that you have, the specifics that are in your plans are going to work or not. So on the individual side, there are organizations, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, community foundations that offer donor advised funds. These donor advised funds are a perfect tool for partnering with younger generations or friends, whoever your loved ones are, on the shared goals that fit your philanthropic mission. You can provide any dollar amount really above the minimum threshold for decision making, and you can see how another generation or another individual will go about deciding whether an institution is a good steward of your resources. Is it effective in using those resources to have an impact? Is it the impact that you would like to have? And so this becomes a great tool without really needing huge amounts of money to see how well someone stewards your resources and gives them an opportunity to make mistakes and learn from them. This is really what education is all about. No one is ever going to be 100% successful. And some of these decisions really are dependent upon the environment in which somebody is working, and we can have great ideas, but they don't always come to fruition when funded with the resources. The next area I would encourage you to think about is writing down your plans and your verbal communications. So not everybody is comfortable having a verbal communication with their heirs. And I will share a different scenario in which I have a sibling who has some special needs, and I encourage my Depression era parents that I did not need resources from their estate, and I would rather see those resources go into a trust to help this sibling who is not always able to take care of themselves. And they grew up during a generation where dividing the estate equally among your offspring was how you told everybody that you love each of your offspring equally. Um, I think in reflection today, different offspring do better financially than other offspring. And it's important to have a conversation with those who have done very well as to whether they really need the resources or whether they would prefer them to be used to help another sibling. Every family is different. In my family, I think many of us were in agreement that it would be better to help provide for the one sibling than to necessarily have an equal share in the estate. Again, these are very personal decisions, but I do encourage you to have a conversation. My father survived my mother by 8 years, and I encouraged him for a number of years to have a conversation with my one sibling that I was recommending for a trust to explain why he was going in that direction in a way that was not a lack of trust or punitive, but this was for the protection of that individual long term to ensure that they would have a source of income regardless of our parents having been predeceased. He ultimately was not comfortable having the conversation, but did agree to let me write down what he had verbally shared with me to share with that sibling, so that if there was a desire to have a conversation, the two of them might have that conversation. Every family is different. Every individual parent, offspring or parent-grandchild relationship is different. And I encourage you to think intentionally about what would work best for you. And I hold out the other opportunity. If you feel a third party would be helpful, there are a number of ways you can go about doing that. In my case, it was within the family. This is not a self-promotional piece, but if I can be helpful or if someone else you know can be helpful, I encourage you to think about bringing that third party in to broker the conversation instead of not having a conversation or not providing something in writing. Writing after your passing tends to be fairly cold, and if your words don't convey exactly what you intend, and even if they do convey what you want to convey, it's possible that the recipient is not hearing them the way you intended, and there's no longer an opportunity to reconcile that. And I have seen a lot of damage done in relationships where offspring or heirs feel that there was a lack of trust, or it was some kind of repudiation of how they've lived their life, or any number of other options. So again, I encourage you during your lifetime to think about sharing how you're going about your planning, not in a way to make people feel beholden to you or threatening, but to do this in a loving way in which people are better prepared to receive the assets that you are thinking about leaving for them. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you will go back if you haven't seen the other sessions and watch those, and please come back and join us again for future sessions. Have a great day.